Rat u Ukrajini ušao je u 5. godinu, a sukob i dalje traje bez naznaka završetka. Procjenjuje se da je oko 3,7 miliona ljudi interno raseljeno, mnogi u područjima blizu linije fronta. Dodatno, približno 6 miliona Ukrajinaca postalo izbjeglicu u inostranstvu tražeći sigurnost kako u Evropi, tako i šire. Podaci Međunarodne organizacije za migracije pokazuje da 325.000 povratnika riskira ponovnu raseljenost. Moj gost je upravo zamjenik šefa misije IOM-a Dejan Keserović, koji mi se večeras pridružuje iz Kijeva. A otvoren je još jedan front u svijetu. Pakistan je objavio otvoreni rat Afganistanu te napao velike gradove Kabul i Kandahar. Odnose između Pakistana, nuklearne sile i Afganistana, kojim talibani vladaju još 2021. godine, naglo su se pogoršali posljednjih mjeseci. Predsednik Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Donald Tramp održao je najduži govor o stanju nacije u historiji uz bojkot dijela demokrata i napetu atmosferu u Kongresu. Fokusirao se na ekonomiju, migracije i vanjsku politiku, dok su demokrate osporavale njegove tvrdnje. A bivša američka državna sekretarka Hilari Klinton završila je davanje iskaza pred članovima odbora za nadzor predstavničkog doma Sjedinjenih Američkih Država u okviru kongresne istrage o osuđenom seksualnom prestupniku Džefriju Epsteinu. Rekla je da nema saznanja o Epsteinovim kriminalnim aktivnostima, niti se, kako je rekla, sjeća ličnih susreta s njim. Naš dopisnik Ognjen Medić iz Vašingtona donosi ove detalje. A Nizozemska je dobila novu manjinsku vladu 117 dana nakon izbora. Rob Jetten postao je najmlađi premijer u historiji upravo ove zemlje. Ovo je Puls planete. Ja sam i Gotić. Bivša američka državna sekretarka Hilari Klinton završila je davanje iskaza pred članovima odbora za nadzor predstavničkog doma Sjedinjenih Američkih Država u okviru kongresne istrage o osuđenom seksualnom prestupniku Džefriju Epsteinu. Riječ je o takozvanoj depoziciji, odnosno formi svjedočenja pod zakletvom tokom koje članovi Kongresa, ali i pravni timovi postavljaju pitanja bez prisustva javnosti i televizijskih kamera. Prema navodima američkih medija, Hilari Klinton je tokom iskaza ponovila da nema saznanja o Epsteinovim kriminalnim aktivnostima. Niti se, kako je rekla, sjeća ličnih susreta sa njim. Interesovanje javnosti sada je usmjereno na saslušanje bivšeg predsjednika Sjedinjenih Američkih Država, Billa Clintona, koji također daje iskaz pred članovima odbora.
Well, I have just finished testifying. I answered every one of their questions as fully as I could, based on what I knew, and what I knew is what I said in my statement this morning. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, never had any connection or communication with him. I knew Ghislaine Maxwell casually as an acquaintance, but whatever they asked me, I did my very best to respond. It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself. We had asked for that. We think it would have been better for the committee and its efforts to gather whatever information they are seeking. We had a bit of a challenge in the beginning because we had agreed upon rules based on the fact it was going to be a closed hearing at their demand, and one of the members violated that rule, which was very upsetting because it suggested that they might violate other of our agreements. So we had to cease the hearing for a period of time until we could get assurances that no rules would be broken going forward, and we returned to answer questions repetitively, literally over and over again. I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times.
Predsednik Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Donald Tramp održao je najduži govor o stanju nacije u istoriji uz bojkot dijela demokrata i napetu atmosferu u Kongresu. Fokusirao se na ekonomiju migracije, vanjsku politiku, dok su demokrate osporavale njegove tvrdnje. U trenutku dubokih političkih podjela u Vašingtonu, predsednik Sjedinjenih Američkih Država održao je govor o stanju nacije koji će ostati upamćen kao najduži u historiji koji je trajao sat i 47 minuta. Obraćanje u američkom kongresu proteklo je u napetoj atmosferi uz bojkot od oko 80 demokrata iz Senata i predstavničkog doma. Trump je ponovo optužio za masovne prevare u socijalnim programima u Minnesoti, tvrdeći da su članovi somalijske zajednice oštetili poreske obveznike za 19 milijardi dolara bez pruženih dokaza. U Kongresu su mu oštro odgovorili Mark Takano i Rashida Tlaib, ali i Ilhan Omar.
When I last spoke in this chamber 12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. It is indeed a turnaround for the ages. The Biden administration and its allies in Congress gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%. The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself. The sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
A o Trumpovom rekordnom obraćanju u Kongresu o stanju nacije, ali i svjedočenju Hilari Klinton u slučaju Epstein, detalje tražimo od našeg dopisnika, mog kolege Ognjena Medića, koji mi se uključuje iz Vašingtona. Ognjene, dobro ti jutro, dobrodošao u PULS Planete.
Dobro jutro i ka bolje te naša, uvijek je zadovoljstvo gostovati kod tebe.
Zadovoljstvo je naravno uvijek imati te u programu. Ognjene, hajde da rezimiramo Trumpov govor o stanju nacije kojem si i sam prisustvovao. Prije svega, kakva je uživo bila atmosfera na Capitol Hillu? Šta izdvajaš kao najvažnije tačke njegovog govora?
Da, i kao Trumpovom maratonskom govoru ne prestaje da se priča o američkim medijima. Zaista atmosfera na Capitol Hillu bila je nekako, da kažem, napeta, ali isto tako moram da kažem da je ovaj njegov govor o stanju nacije pokazao koliko je duboko podeljeno američko društvo, bar što se tiče politike i tih podela između republikanaca i demokrata. Demokrate su bojkotovale njegov govor, bar njih 80, i ono što je zanimljivo reći da su pored ovog njegovog govora o stanju nacije organizovali i sopstveni govor, i to ispred same zgrade Kongresa, paralelno sa tim, gde su dovele i žrtve iz Epsteinovih fajlova. No, da se vratim na sam njegov govor. U samom Capitol Hillu, kao što sam rekao, atmosfera je bila zaista napeta, a ono što smo mogli da čujemo i vidimo jeste svakako da je Trump svoj fokus u govoru stavio najviše na uspehe svoje administracije, na ekonomiju, na smanjenje inflacije, ali apostrofirao je ono oko čega se on najviše zalaže, a to je upravo imigraciona politika. Ono što smo takođe mogli da vidimo jeste da su republikanci iz predstavničkog doma i senata, ali i gosti koji ga podržavaju, ustajali na svakovu njegovu konstataciju i na sve ono što je on pozitivno rekao o sebi. Dok demokrate pak su sedele i nekako su ignorisale sve te, nazovimo, uspehe koje je on pokušao da predstavi američkoj naciji o radu njegove administracije, o svom drugom mandatu. Tako da zaista smo mogli da vidimo to veče koliko su republikanci i demokrate između sebe podeljeni i koliko se ne slažu oko stavova.
Kažeš da su demokrate reagovali na Trumpov ovaj najduži govor i bojkot njegovih poruka, posebno o ekonomiji i migracijama. Koje tačke tačno o migracijama bile su sporne za demokrate?
I kao u jednom momentu Trump se okrenuo prema demokratama i uperio prst u njih i rekao da su ludi. To je zaista onako nekako najupečetljiviji moment čitavog njegovog govora. Pitao ih je da li američka vlada i svi ljudi koji se nalaze ovdje u prostoriji treba da podrže njegovu inicijativu zapravo da se građani Amerike brane od ilegalnih migranata. I pitao ih je direktno, ako podržavate ovo, ustanite i aplaudirajte. Demokrate su sedele dok su republikanci sigurno 2 minuta bez prestanka aplaudirali. On je sa ovim pokazao zapravo da imigraciona politika ostaje prioritet njegove administracije. Nakon toga demokrate nisu imale objašnjenje zapravo za ovaj njihov postupak, dok republikanci govore da je ovo najbolja reklama upravo njihovoj stranci i da će ovo koristiti u svim video spotovima za predstojeće midterm izbore. Mnogo toga je Trump govorio. Trump je doveo čak i žrtve imigracione, tako da kažem, ilegalnih migranata u Sjedinjenim Državama u samu salu i ponaosob ih prozivao i govorio zapravo svima da su upravo te porodice i ti ljudi koji se nalaze tamo izgubili svoje najbliže upravo zbog toga što je prethodna administracija, ali i demokrate, toliko puno ilegalnih imigranata dovelo u Sjedinjene Države. Tako da što se tiče imigracije, zaista je pokazao da i to dalje ostaje njegov prioritet i nekako je usmerio i kurs svoje politike do kraja mandata i rekao je da on od svoje imigracione politike, pogotovo od ICE agenata i svega onoga što se dešavalo, neće odustati dok potpunosti ne očisti Ameriku od njih i da je Amerika za njega na prvo mesto.
Demokrati nisu pljeskale, ali jesu republikanci koji segmenti govora su izazvali najviše aplauza upravo njegovih kolega, republikanaca. Zašto je evo taj gest važan za političku podršku? Kao što kažeš da je taj aplauz i trajao i po 2 minute.
Pa da, nekako da kažem da je Trump sam ovim govorom želeo da učvrsti tu svoju neku bazu birača. Zapravo ovaj govor je bio veoma patriotski i nekako je najviše bio usmeren njima. Veruj mi da su na svaku njegovu konstataciju o boljoj ekonomiji, o manjoj inflaciji, o poboljšanju životnog standarda oni ustajali i tapšali. A sada demokrate se sa tim ne slažu i uglavnom su negirale sve ono što je on govorio. Zapravo imamo i taj moment sa sa govora kada su dve senatorke iz demokratske stranke krenule da vređaju Trumpa i govorile mu da su lud. To su isto takođe kamere zabeležile i to je samo pokazalo koliko se oni ne slažu. Pored toga što sam napomenuo da je bila puno reči o imigracionoj politici, Trump se najviše hvalio i tome kako je povećao životni standard američke porodice, kako je stavio američku porodicu na prvo mesto, kako će nastaviti to da radi, kako će nastaviti da smanjuje inflaciju i kako inflacija nikad nije bila manje nego u njegovom mandatu. Takođe govorio je i to kako je američka granica trenutno najbezbednija i kako je 0 ilegalnih migranata ušlo preko granice dok je on u svom drugom mandatu i to su isto takođe republikanci snažno pozdravljali aplauzom dok su demokrate ćutale i nisu ništa komentarisale na tu temu.
Ovdje ne moram da te pitam, evo uzimajući u obzir sve što si ovo rekao i hvaljenje najnižom inflacijom, hvaljenje o tome da je Amerika sada najjača, da je lider u svijetu, uzimajući u obzir i sve ratove koje sada vidimo u svijetu, koliko su tačne tvrdnje? Šta kažu američki mediji o tome koliko su tačne njegove tvrdnje iz njegovog govora o stanju nacije?
I kao ono što je meni bilo posebno zanimljivo jeste da uvek nakon govora o stanju nacije bilo koji predsednik da drži taj govor, nakon toga sledi upravo i odgovor suprotne partije. U ovom slučaju to je bio odgovor demokrata i Abigail Spanbridge, guvernerka Virginije, se odmah uključila na sve zapravo američke televizije i dala svojevrstan odgovor demokrata na njegov govor. Ona je zapravo u tom govoru istakla i posebno naglasila da Trump ne govori istinu, da je sve podatke lažirao, da i dalje Amerikanci žive teško, da su cene visoke, da je represija nad ilegalnim migrantima prevelika i da je zapravo američko društvo duboko podeljeno i da brojke koje on iznu u samom govoru nisu tačne. Uvek nekako, da kažem, i tokom prethodnih meseci vidimo koliko republikanci i demokrate kontriraju jedni drugima, tako da republikanci predstavljaju pozitivne rezultate, demokrate to osporavaju. Američki mediji su takođe podeljeni, imamo republikanske, imamo demokratske medije, tako da zaista je teško u ovom momentu naći gde je balans i gde je sredina. Ono što može da se vidi na samom terenu jeste da postoje i zadovoljni Amerikanci, da postoje oni nezadovoljni Amerikanci, tako da u svakom slučaju američko društvo, ja mogu evo lično i da zaključim, je veoma podeljeno što se tiče same Amerike, a jedan tipičan građanin Amerike, bar oni sa kojima sam ja imao prilike da pričam, kažu da nije ni bolje, nije ni gore, nego hajde da se nađemo u nekoj sredini i kažemo da je u redu.
Zlatna sredina, što bismo rekli. Ognjene, hajde da krenemo na drugu temu. Evo, vrlo kratko samo svjedočenje Hilari Klinton u slučaju Epstein. Koje reakcije članova Kongresa izaziva, kao i javnosti, američke javnosti, da je Hilari Klinton rekla, i naravno njene tvrdnje, da nema saznanja o kriminalnim aktivnostima Džefrija Epsteina, kao i da se ne sjeća uopće da ga je srela ili da je provodila vrijeme s njim, uzimajući u obzir, evo i da znamo sada da je njen muž, Bill Clinton, bivši američki predsjednik, provodio dosta vremena na otoku Džefrija Epsteina.
Da, posebno je zanimljivo pratiti ovu temu i sve što se dešava oko Epsteinovih failova i čak i na samom govoru o stanju nacije pojedine demokrate su nosile bedževe sa natpisom Release the Files i to isto tako, eto da kažem, obeležilo taj govor, ali da, juče je Hilari Klinton svedočila pred članovima Kongresa koji su zaduženi upravo za ovaj slučaj. Moram da napomenem da su svi bili iz republikanske stranke. James Comer, koji je pre samog njenog saslušanja rekao da će pokušati njena da sazna sve što ga zanima, rekao je da u ovom trenutku ne treba da se delimo na republikance i demokrate, nego da američka javnost zaslužuje da zna sve u slučaju Epstein, pa tako niko neće pred pravdom biti pošteđen. Hilari Klinton jeste rekla i osporila da je ikada poznavala Džefrija Epsteina, da je Ghislaine Maxwell upoznala samo na nekim društvenim događajima, što je zaista bilo čudno, jer koliko pogledamo Epstein failove koji su dostupni naravno javnosti, vidimo da je njen suprug Bill Clinton i tekako provodio vrijeme sa Epsteinom, da je putovao njegovim avionom, da je boravio na ostrvu i to sve zanima Amerikance i sve one slike zanima da li je to zapravo bilo tako kako se piše u medijima ili neka druga slika stoji iza toga. Jedno je sigurno i što je pokazao ovaj slučaj da niko nije različit pred zakonom i da svi moraju da odgovaraju za svoje postupke. Ona je poprilično bila zbunjena juče kada je davala izjavu za američke medije, što su mnogi okarakterisali kao neko stanje svesti ili zbunjenosti zbog toga što možda nešto krije. Zapravo ovaj slučaj je mnogo još dublje podelio američku naciju. Danas je zakazano također u saveznoj državi New York i saslušanje Billa Klintona. Oba ova iskaza biće snimana prema navodima američkih medija i tek nakon nekoliko dana biće i objavljeni. Ja moram i da napomenem da je juče jedna republikanka koja je prisustvovala upravo saslušanju, iako je to zabranjeno, slikala Hilari Klinton i poslala republikancima tu sliku, te su oni to odmah iskoristili i objavili na Twitter, te također je ovo okarakterisano kao kršenje zakona i ona bi možda i trebala da odgovara zato što je slikala, ali vidjet ćemo, mnogo je kontroverzije oko ove teme i nakon saslušanja Billa Clintona danas imat ćemo možda potpune informacije.
Kontroverzije kao i pitanje da ovakvo saslušanje nije javno, što bi možda trebalo biti javno jer je od javnog značaja, ne samo u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama, nego u cijelom svijetu. Evo vidimo da se samo u Britaniji sada vrše hapšenja, u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama još nijedno hapšenje nije u slučaju Epstein. Ognjenje, hvala ti za sada, puštam te. Vidimo se svakako naredne sedmice da prokomentarišemo naravno i epilog ovog slučaja. Hvala ti mnogo. Rat u Ukrajini ušao je u 5. godinu, 4 godine nakon što je Rusija pokrenula punu invaziju, a sukob i dalje traje bez naznaka završetka. Ukrajinska vojska i dalje se opire ruskim snagama, dok civili svakodnevno trpe vazdušne napade. Procjenjuje se da je poginulo najmanje 55.000 Ukrajinaca, dok stvarni broj može biti i do 200.000, dok Rusija bilježi više od 186.000 vojnika mrtvih i oko 1,25 ukupnih gubitaka. Sukob je duboko podijelio Evropu, a pregovori o miru uz podršku Sjedinjenih Američkih Država i zapadnih saveznika za sada ne donose preokret. Ukrajinski predsednik Zelenski se ipak nada novim pregovorima početkom marta.
Я говорив сьогодні вже кілька разів з Рустемом Умєровим, Давидом Арахамією та з представниками президента Сполучених Штатів Америки Стівом Віткофом та Джаредом Кушнером. За підсумками сьогоднішніх їхніх зустрічей вже більше готовності до наступного тристороннього формату. Скоріш за все, зустріч наступна буде в Еміратах, буде саме в Абу-Дабі. Ми розраховуємо, що формат буде на початку березня. Війну треба завершувати. Це наша позиція, це позиція України, це позиція всіх наших партнерів. Але, на жаль, всі зараз бачать, що готовності Росії до миру немає. І жодної ознаки, що Путін зупиняє свою машину війни, також поки що немає. Навпаки, він готується далі воювати, і світ повинен бути готовим тиснути на Росію, щоб це змінилося. Рецепт всім у світі зрозумілий. Війну Росія зупинятиме навіть сама за власним бажанням, коли світ остаточно зупинить російську нафту і інші російські енергоресурси та російські банки. Це абсолютно реально.
Удалось нанести стратегическое поражение России на поле боя. Поэтому противник делает ставку на индивидуальный и массовый террор. Здесь и обстрелы городов, и диверсии на инфраструктуре, и покушения на представителей государственных и военных властей. Ну вот очередной пример вчера на Савеловском вокзале.
And amid ongoing attacks on energy infrastructure, millions in Ukraine face blackouts and freezing winters. An estimated 3.7 million people are internally displaced within Ukraine, many in frontline areas with acute needs for housing repairs and psychological support. Additionally, approximately 6 million Ukrainians have become refugees abroad, seeking safety in Europe and beyond. International Organization for Migration's data reveals 325,000 1,000 returnees risk renewed displacement, underscoring the war's enduring impact on resilience and recovery. Mission Chief Deputy Mr. Dejan Keserovic is joining me from Kyiv, Ukraine. Mr. Keserovic, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for finding time for me.
Thank you. Can you tell us, first of all, the situation on the ground as Ukrainians are now facing the 5th year of war? And how has the war impacted these groups, such as children and elderly, of those with disabilities on the ground in Ukraine that you are currently reporting on?
When we're talking about the 4th year, but actually we also have those that are displaced after 2014. And in that sense, we are not talking about the 4, but we're talking about 12 years of displacement for some of them. When we're talking about those most vulnerable, situation is dire, and especially when we're talking the situation during the winter. As the winter this year was specifically harsh, temperature dropped below 20 in many of the cities. And as a result of attacks on energy infrastructure, water infrastructure, and gas infrastructure, many people remain without water, heating, and basically any possibility to stay for a prolonged time in their flats. And this situation was specifically was hit the big cities, such as Kiev or Kharkiv, but you can also say that Mykolaiv and Kherson is in equally bad situation. When we're talking about energy infrastructure, we're talking about direct impact to the civilians, and situation and number of those that are affected is pretty big. Many of them use the coping strategy, and this coping strategy is just to go to their neighbors, to their relatives, for those that actually can provide basic assistance. Assistance are the most visually can be considered actually throughout the frontline area, and this is why when we're talking about the most dire situation, we can set the frontline area where majority of IDPs find their first kind of a displacement, and as I mentioned, in the big cities.
Yes, and Mr. Keserovic, I want to talk about those key programs of the IOM. Can you describe IOM's key programs in Ukraine since this invasion began, including support for internally displaced people? And of course, I'm interested in your coordination with the local partners. How is that being reflected on the ground, and what kind of cooperation do you have with local communities, partners, and of course, aid agencies?
When we talk about cooperation and how we should address this immense need of the people on the front line, the first and foremost program that we are actually all covering and trying actually to respond is Humanitarian National Response Plan that was basically built under the leadership of Humanitarian Coordinator, United Nations Resident Coordinator / Humanitarian Coordinator, and this is actually throughout the territory of the front line. I am coordinating not only on the central level, but also on the local level. We have the offices throughout the front line, and in that sense, we are covering the front line the following way. From Poltava, we are covering Sumy, from Kharkiv, of course, Kharkiv region, from Dnipro, Zaporizhia, and Kryvyi Rih. Kryvyi Rih is also part of the Dnipro region, but it's a very big city with the big needs. And then also from Mykolaiv, covering Kherson, and then the front line that is coming on the maritime zone is actually Odessa. When you talk about this coordination for humanitarian assistance happening on a free level, on central level, on a humanitarian coordination that is every 2 weeks is organized. One is Kiev, one's on the front line. The other level is actually on the level of Oblast. We have something that's a local coordination that was done together with the local authorities. And it's a come with the coordination with the UN. We are also doing through the clusters, but also so-called HOGG, or humanitarian coordination within a particular region of Ukraine. The needs, when you talk about this, are really big, and they're actually, we always thought that we were going towards the calm down situation, less fighting, less shelling, and we go towards the more developing assistance. However, since October last year, with the increased attacks to the civilian and energy infrastructure, we actually find the humanitarian situation this year need more assistance maybe than any of the previous years of war, simply because the energy and water and gas infrastructure was that much damaged, and in certain cities like Odessa, they can face that they don't have water at all. But this is why the basically central water system, central heating system, central energy system try to be actually segregated, that they can actually easily be repaired in response to the need of the population of frontal area. Coordination is happening, as I mentioned, on all three levels: central, oblast, and the local level, because this is the only way how we can address this in very big need for the local population at the frontline areas.
What specific challenges? I want to talk about the returnees, the people, Ukrainians, who are coming back to their homes, if they still have their homes. And what specific challenges do they face upon coming back to Ukraine, to their homes, those who are internally displaced, such as access to housing? And I wanted to talk about employment, but that is at this point probably impossible to talk about, taking in consideration that you already mentioned that Russia is still targeting infrastructure, civilian infrastructures and energy infrastructure. So what are the biggest challenges, such as, like you mentioned yourself, water, food, that returnees face coming back home?
We need to understand that Ukraine is actually a very big country. And on their size, we could easily say that there is 3 zones. One is actually frontline, where the life-saving measures still needs to be applied. Then you have actually this central area where certain development activity can happen. And then you have western area that certainly more assistance, development assistance can come. Then in that sense, we can easily say that Ukraine is unique when it comes to humanitarian response, because at the same time, you have humanitarian, we have this transition and recovery support and development support. When you talk about returnees, what we can analyze so far is actually those returnees that happened after 2023, when Ukraine regained control of the vast territory from Kiev till Sumy. And then in that sense, 4.4 million people return back to their previous place of residence, many of them from abroad. It was 1.1 million came only from the European Union. But what is interesting that not only everybody returned back to their own previous home, some of them return and become displacement. 372,000 of those that was returned, that actually become IDPs. Then in that sense, I would like just to maybe underline, there was normally 4 main pillars or 4 main needs that any of the displaced person need upon return. And this is the house, this is of course employment or job where somebody work and have certain income. Then the third is actually what kind of a medical facility exists if you're talking about that are coming as a family back. And then and the final one is actually education and what kind of a schooling exists for the kids. This is the 4 kind of a main element that can ensure any type of durable return. When you're talking about durable return, I am working together with the government on the next strategy for an internally displaced person that needs to be adopted in Ukraine. The last one ends in December 2025. And basically those 4 elements are those that we are trying to get the government to address. Then when you mention employment, there is possible to employment because this is effective economy that is working. And in that sense, we're also working basically on 2 streams. One, to talk about employment strategy and what type of jobs can be created in a different communities, but at the same time, what kind of skills we needed. And then this is what we're working together with the government. Do we have job and do we have a housing for those that are coming back? This is 2 main, and then it's also trying to work with other UN agencies on a schooling and on a medical facility for the whole family to return back. Then basically, if you ask me what are the 4 main issues for the internally displaced to return back, this is those 4.
I want to talk about the psychological, emotional toll of the families that are being separated. I want to talk about Ukrainians now before we continue talking about the IOM services being provided to the Ukrainians coming back home. How do displaced Ukrainians describe the emotional toll? What have you heard on the ground? The toll of being separated from family members, such as children or elderly parents left behind in conflict zones?
You know, the toll is, like in any conflict, is very high. It can come to every individual. Then in that sense, any type of how we call it MHPSS, but psychosocial and psychological support is very important. And it's actually going across Ukraine. I think it's enough to say that all of us who are living here in Ukraine, and we have very long power cuts during the day, sometimes 12 hours, 15 hours, without heating. On one hand side, we can talk about resilience, that now, yes, it's resilience, we can cope, everything is fine, but actually it's not. This is not normal conditions when you're talking that now we are in a 2026 and that you don't have basically basic necessities in your home. And this toll becomes bigger and bigger over the time. And this is something when we talk about 4 years after the beginning of the full-scale invasion is something that's very important, how we address the psychosocial support and how we address and how many people we will have to provide this support on a professional level. When I say the professional level, people are trained, but when we talk about, you actually mention about 3.7 million IDPs, and there is a 6 million people that are fled abroad. But if you're talking also about all of those that are currently family of those that are on front line, family of those that are abroad, family that are split apart, all of those actually need to be provided certain assistance and certain discussions when it comes to psychosocial support. And certainly it's not sufficient what we have now, needs to be way more. And each of those assistance needs to be individually targeted. Each of us responding differently on the conditions in which we are living. And in that sense, this is something that we need to consider more.
Absolutely, Mr. Keserovic. Just for our viewers, IDPs, internally displaced people. I want to talk about children. Can you share insights into how children are affected by displacement, how they handle being away from their homes, their families, and what long-term effects IOM, your organization, observes?
When you talk about the children, certainly the children are the most vulnerable in situation of any type of the conflict. Then in that sense, their displacement is also linked with their family links. They are on one hand side easier to adopt to the new place of displacement. However, this need additional efforts that actually we need to work together with the schooling authorities, together with the local authorities, together with the people of that community, how to accept them and how we can actually move forward. We should also not forget that sometimes is also need to support them to learn the language, because not all do speak Ukrainian. And in that sense, this is additional toll that actually come to the children to actually be fully integrated in the new environment. People are very open towards the children, and they're very, very friendly in trying to provide the maximum support. But at the same time, when you're talking about the children, when you're talking about the single mothers, when you're talking about elderlies, this is the group of population that need additional support. And in that sense, we are always talking about what we can do more for them. This is why in all schools, we are actually building the underground schooling, that they actually will feel more safe that they can go to school. It's very important to them to go to school, because this type of socialization is actually something that is very much needed. Besides going to the schools, there is also this network that they actually can create again around the school. But that's important why we are talking about building the shelters in the school. This is why we are talking about providing everything that we can also in the kindergartens. And actually, if the children can feel happy, then the parents will be happiest too. Thank you.
That sounds very reasonable. And how does your organization track and analyze displacement trends, and what recent data shows about intentions to flee, not just internally, but also abroad?
You know, we have something what we call displaced tracking metrics, something that we are doing through the intention surveys, they're doing voluntarily online, we're doing the different type of methodological tools that we're using in order to combine those data and actually get the very good prediction of the number of people that are potentially will displaced or those that are currently displaced. This tool is, as I said, is called the Displacement Tracking Metrics, and this is used by all humanitarian international actors. And one thing is actually important to understand, that once when the first displacement happened, the secondary is very possible. Then in that sense, when we are talking about the first and secondary displacement in migration science, because it's a science as well, it's actually secondary is way more easier. Currently, we are talking about potential displacement for additional 370,000 people, and this is for very simple reason, because of additional attack to energy and other civilian infrastructure, because people will not able and not anymore able to cope, because they already drain out their savings, they dry out their actual previous possibilities for integration, and then they're considering what else they can do in the place where they are. Maybe it will be better to move further, or within the country or abroad. Then in that sense, additional humanitarian assistance is still needed. Yes, it is 4 years to war, but the war is still ongoing. Then in that sense, if we are not providing further assistance, we'll have more displacement.
That sounds something like that we see in every war, more or less. I want to talk about, before we wrap up, there are a couple of more questions that I want to ask, and that is especially what role does International Organization for Migration, your organization, play in supporting Ukrainian refugees in neighboring countries, and this is beyond immediate aid?
First we are present in all European countries. Then in that sense, we are present basically in all countries that are surrounding Ukraine. And all the countries that actually receive the biggest number of Ukrainians, we try to provide information migration centers where Ukrainians can get information what's going on back home and what kind of assistance they can receive it in the country of destination. Now I'm talking about European Union country. And this is actually in all. This is in Estonia, this is in Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. Then if you go down, this is also both Slovakia and Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary. Basically, we are covering them all, and this is actually something where currently we're working with the government how and what will be the best way that to share information, what is happening back home, in order to more get information on the potential return. Why is actually return that important for Ukraine? In a survey that was done on how many people will be needed for any type of large-scale reconstruction project in Ukraine, it's a 6 million additional working places. That's meaning that everybody who is abroad, if returned, probably will not be enough to fill the gap that will come in the labor market. Then in that sense, Ukraine doing their best in cooperation with IOM to share information where the jobs are available, where the potential housing will be available, and we are working not only with the neighborhood countries, but we are also working with the diaspora organizations. In that sense, together with the European Union, especially when you're talking about European Union special representative, special envoy for Ukraine, Eva Johansson, as well as with the chair of Polish Reconstruction Conference are coming this year, and Italian chair of Reconstruction Conference happened last year. We're actually trying to together with them and the diaspora organization to do our best to provide information as well as to mobilize private sector for the future support of reconstruction of Ukraine.
Mr. Kaserovic, I speak to a large group of humanitarians in the humanitarian community as well. I've been on a couple of humanitarian missions myself as well. And there's this one question that is always out there, and that is what future missions or opportunities will be available for humanitarians to volunteer or contribute to your organization, to the IOM's efforts in Ukraine and, of course, host countries. What can we do?
When you said what we can do, the most important actually is still when you said when you're talking on those that need classical humanitarian assistance. What we said, sometimes NFI or cash-based voucher of assistance that actually come to the front line as well. There is possibility to do different type donation or organizing support, or through countries, or through civil society, or through banks. And in that sense, basically, I always inviting all three, because this is not just a question to be provided through IOM, through UN. We need to see and target and try to provide the support to the people itself. Then in that sense, all type of assistance is important. From those that are actually called so-called twin city or sister city approach, how the city to city can support Ukrainian cities and all the cities on the Balkan region. Then the other one, how we can support through government structures. The third one, how we can support from the civil society structures, and finally through the UN. UN and concretely IOM have also set up resilient fund. Then in that sense, every country, every individuals can actually also contribute to IOM through those funds.
And to conclude our conversation, Mr. Keserovich, looking ahead, you speak to Ukrainians, you speak to internally displaced people, to refugees, to the returnees coming back to their homes. What message of resilience and hope do Ukrainians have going into the 5th year of war?
I think that all Ukrainians will tell you the same, and this is that they will prevail. They would like actually to maintain their home, they want to continue to build their own country, they will continue to develop their country. Then in that sense, I do not see any sounds of any type of non-unity or a difference in positioning on that. I think all of them are absolutely ready to provide the full support to those in need, and actually in that sense, when it comes to humanitarian assistance, the level of support that they're showing to each other is really above humane, if I can say like that. But basically they do providing everything what they can to their neighbors, to their friends, and to those that they don't know, but they know they're coming from the front line.
Mr. Keserovich, thank you very much for choosing time, taking time to speak with us, and of course, thank you for being part of my program.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. IOM's Mission Chief Deputy, Mr. Dan Keserovich, was joining me from Kyiv. Stay with us. Pakistanska vlada u petak proglasila je otvoreni rat protiv Talibana nakon što je prethodnog dana pokrenuta afganistanska ofanziva na njihovoj granici, što je potaknulo Islamabad da bombarduje Kabul u znak odmazde. Pakistan je tokom noći sa četvrtka na petak napao nekoliko afganistanskih lokacija, uključujući velike gradove Kabul i Kandahar. Odnosi između Pakistana, nuklearne sile i Afganistana, kojim talibani vladaju od 2021. godine, naglo su se pogoršali posljednjih mjeseci. Kopneni prelazi uglavnom su zatvoreni od prethodnih sukoba u oktobru, u kojima je s obje strane poginulo više od 70 ljudi. Dugogodišnji saveznici Pakistan i Afganistan sporadično se sukobljavaju od kako su talibanske vođe preuzeli kontrolu nad Kabulom još u augustu 2021. godine. A prema podacima svjetskog programa hrane, 2/3 Afganistanaca suočeno je sa akutnom neuhranjenošću, a život 4 miliona djece su ugroženi nakon dolaska Talibana na vlast 2021. godine. Obustave strane pomoći krizu su produbili suša, zemljotresi i povratak miliona izbjeglica. Zbog smanjenja donatorskih sredstava, pomoć sada stiže tek dijelu od 17 miliona gladnih, dok raste i smrtnost djece. Svjetski program hrane zbog upravo manjka sredstava sada mora da vrati 3 od 4 djece kod kojih se javlja akutna glad. Sjedinjene Američke Države u Ženevi su iznijele tvrde zahtjeve Iranu u novoj rundi nuklearnih pregovora. Objavio je to The Wall Street Journal. Američki izaslanici pod snažnim pritiskom administracije Donalda Trumpa traže demontažu postrojenja Fordo, Natanz i Isfahan, predaju obogaćenog uranijuma te trajni sporazum bez vremenskog ograničenja. Washington inzistira na nultom obogaćivanju uz minimalno ublažavanje sankcija. Iran odbacuje ultimatume i poručuje da bi svaki napad izazvao sveobuhvatan odgovor. Razlike ostaju duboke dok američki zvaničnici upozoravaju i na razvoj iranskih balističkih projektila, čime raste rizik od vojne eskalacije. Nizozemska je dobila novu manjinsku vladu. 117 dana nakon izbora Rob Jetten postao je najmlađi premijer u historiji ove zemlje. Koalicija stranaka D66 konzervativnih kršćanskih demokrata i desničarske FFD predstavlja rijedak eksperiment u petoj najvećoj ekonomiji eurozone, kojim su tradicionalno upravljale većinske koalicije. Međutim, osiguravanje većine postaje ipak sve teže u fragmentiranom nizozemskom političkom krajoliku, jer se preferencije birača mijenjaju u svakom izbornom ciklusu, a centrističke stranke kontinuirano gube podršku, ocjenjuje to Reuters. Jettenova socijalno-liberalna stranka u manje od 2 godine dospjela je s 5. mjesta u sam vrh nizozemske politike, što predstavlja izniman uspjeh. No politički gledano, sve su se zvijezde morale savršeno poklopiti kako bi ovaj 38-godišnjak u tome ipak i uspio.
I'm very happy with this historic result for my party, the best result in our history, and also a very strong message from Dutch voters that they want positive political powers in the center to work together and to deliver for all the people in the Netherlands. It brings a great responsibility for all the party leaders, and now we will have to wait for the final results, whether the PVV from Geert Wilders or D66 is the biggest party and gets the first chance to form a majority government.
Ben je still confident dat de spanning of toch echt wel de winst?
Well, we've seen 2 years of negativism and a Dutch government that was not cooperating that much in Europe as we've seen before, and this brings the Netherlands back in the heart of Europe, and I'm very proud of that.
Toliko u Pulsu planete za ovu sedmicu. Ove i ostale vijesti možete i dalje potražiti na našem sajtu Newsmax balkans.com. Mi se vidimo naredne sedmice. Ne mijenjajte kanal.